Just to let you know, there are about to be major spoilers for Obsession, starting in about 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Nikki dodged a bullet here, in my opinion. I heard about the whole two takes chopped together idea, so it's not necessarily the case that she was meant to appear as interested in Bear as she actually was. And hey, listen, I'm no expert on women. But from an outside perspective, even I can tell that her demeanour is at least somewhat inviting of whatever kind of admission the boy might have somehow conjured up. If he even had a single morsel of courage, he could have avoided all this palaver from the beginning and simply laid out his feelings on the table. But no, even in this moment, after she has just confessed how comfortable she feels talking to him and outright asked him to his face to confess his feelings for her, he bottles it and continues down a path of wallowing self-pity. If Nikki was in fact open to a relationship with this guy, then first of all, what the fuck was she thinking? And second of all, jeez, what could be worse for a woman than being forced into a relationship with a guy that is too much of a pussy to instigate one? Good job she got to spend all that time screaming her lungs out in that torturous hell dimension instead. Though, I guess it's a shame about the multiple life sentences that are probably headed her way. The story of the summer so far, particularly from a box office perspective, has undoubtedly been Curry Barker's Obsession. A movie that was quite famously now reportedly made with a mere $750,000 budget, and at the time of recording has thus far raked in more than $209 million at the box office. Since about a week after its release, the movie has had a stranglehold on the interest of the internet, as well as the general movie-going audience. It seems like word of mouth has worked its magic on this film about as effectively as any filmmaker could possibly hope for. The movie's marketing alone doesn't really seem to boast any particularly unique characteristics beyond the fact that it was directed by a YouTuber, though that's kind of beginning to become less and less unusual nowadays. It's interesting, however, just how successful this movie is. Considering the fact that a Star Wars film was released in the same week, Obsession remaining the most talked about movie of the month is quite the achievement, even if the Mando movie was an incoherent, laughably boring snooze fest. I personally really enjoyed Obsession, and unless somebody else surprises me later in the year, and if I really cared about the Oscars at all, I'd definitely be giving Indy Navarrete my vote for Best Actress, because holy moly, she puts in one hell of a tortured, terrifyingly volatile performance as Nikki Freeman. Now, I did actually want to get that out of the way just before I start talking about why the movie probably isn't going to be remembered in hindsight as quite as good as it is currently considered to be. I like the premise, and the One Wish Willow's a simple device, but they're a fun one. The kind of thing that we've seen many times in other stories. They grant one person one wish, one time, and there's no takebacks and no kind of refunds or anything like that. It's just a simple monkey's paw-esque thingamajig. There are obvious world-building implications that should be accounted for in this movie, but aren't. For example, if these things really do work, and judging by the 3 that we see used in the movie, it's safe to say that they do, then the world would look very, very different from the one that we see in the film, which is basically the same as our own. It would only take a few children or disturbed adults getting their hands on these little twigs for the whole world to be teeming with dinosaurs, dragons, superheroes, and perhaps most realistically, a horde of mind-controlled women who are all obsessed with one particularly horny teenager. Disregarding this oversight, however, we can choose to focus more on what is actually in the movie rather than what isn't. Bear, the main protagonist, is an insufferable, pathetic weasel of a man who is basically no good to anyone. He's not someone that any young boy should aspire to be like, nor is he the kind of man that any young woman should want to be with. He's the exact kind of selfish, weak-willed wimp that would pull a stunt like the one he does in the movie, if such a power was afforded to him. I know the movie's opinion of him is no higher than mine, and the audience is supposed to have the ick as they watch him squirming his way through the movie, making one bad decision after another until he unceremoniously dies at the hand of a strange piece of mechanical inconsistency. But even though I'm supposed to hate him, I kind of wish there was a little something there to just make him seem ever so slightly redeemable. We're shown almost immediately after he makes the wish that he instantly suspects that the magic might actually be real. He inspects the empty packaging suspiciously in the car, and then later that night begins searching through Reddit for confirmation of his suspicions. The more and more time goes by, the more obvious it becomes to him that the willow twig really did make Nikki love him more than anyone else in the world. This is a huge problem when it comes to Bear's likability. It makes sense, potentially, that even if Nikki's love for him was manufactured by some magic, He could easily get carried away and lose himself in the ecstasy of finally getting to be with the woman that he has been so infatuated by for so long. However, once she starts doing crazier and crazier things like lying about her dad's cancer diagnosis, making a ritualistic shrine for his dead cat, cooking his dead cat, and shitting herself and vomiting all over the floor because she refused to stop smiling maniacally for the entire time that he was at work. Once all this stuff starts happening, Bear has to realise exactly what he's done and work to change things somehow as soon as possible. Instead, he just keeps letting this kind of stuff go on. And when he eventually does call the One Wish Willow customer service number, he only does so with the intention of altering his wish, rather than actually cancelling it or trying to end it in any way. It's only once he's told that this can't be done that he accepts, "Ah, geez, okay, I suppose I gotta cancel it." He doesn't talk like that, but that's kind of the attitude that he has throughout the movie. Then once he's told he can't do that either, and also learns that the real Nikki is apparently trapped screaming in some kind of hell, he just chooses to hang up abruptly and try to ignore what he's just heard. He constantly proves himself a coward, choosing the less scary choice every time, even though he knows deep down that the real Nikki is suffering all while he's enjoying a romantic life with her body. Then even when he isn't enjoying it anymore, which happens pretty early in the movie after she starts doing some things that are just completely insane, he still refuses to take serious steps towards finding a solution until after she brutally murders one of his best friends in front of him by viciously mashing her face against a brick. Bit late now, Bear, isn't it? Even while that attack is happening, Bear just lets it play out. He doesn't have a single proactive bone in his body. Even the sight of his friend being brutalized is not enough of a trigger to get him to try and put a stop to it. In fact, Bear is so cowardly that when he does finally decide to do the right thing and kill himself, thereby freeing Nikki from her cursed existence, it's far too late for her to make anything of the situation she would have found herself in once she woke up. She would be covered in blood and surrounded by the bodies of her friends, completely unable to explain to the police how any of it happened, and therefore doomed to spend the rest of her life rotting in prison. And by the way, to compound Bear's cowardice even more, the last thing he actually does in his life, before all the autonomy is taken away from him by Nikki's wish, is attempt to make himself vomit up the sleeping pills that he used to take his own life. Cowardice. At every turn. It's fine to have an unlikable main character, but there just has to be some kind of arc to make his story compelling. It makes for a difficult watch when really there's no one in the movie to root for except maybe real Nikki's trapped consciousness, which never really gets a chance to play a significant role in the story. You want desperately for Bear to do something right, anything at all in the movie, but at every turn he's either choosing the wrong option or doing far too little, far too late. Anyway, as for the actual plot, there's not a whole lot wrong with the premise or most of the execution, but there are a few strange contradictions that just didn't need to be there. One example being the phone call in the car. While the "do you want to speak to Nikki" line is really quite terrifying and brings up a lot of horrific questions about the nature of Nikki's true self, it does actually serve as a direct contradiction to the line from the same guy almost immediately preceding it. When Bear asks the customer service guy if Nikki's love for him is even real, he replies, "Just because you chose this for her doesn't make it less real." Just because you chose this for her doesn't make it less real. Well, which is it, guy? Nikki can't be really in love with Bear and simultaneously not there at all. If Nikki is not truly herself, and is in fact enduring great suffering, as is implied by her deathly screams, then of course her love for Bear isn't real. It is obvious from that point onwards that whatever's happened to Nikki, she is not currently in control of her body, and something else, a demon of some kind, is currently possessing her. This is confirmed by the creepy scene in the bedroom wherein she begs Bear to kill her. Speaking of creepy scenes, there are a lot in the movie, and some of them serve the story really quite well, though I'm not really sure why a few of the other ones exist at all, other than to scare the audience. What does Bear's wish that Nikki loved him more than anyone in the world have to do with cooking and then feeding him his cat? There are hoops you can jump through to try and make it work, but there's just nothing in the movie that suggests any reason why she might do something like that. Unless she's just being creepy for creepy's sake. Then again, with the weird reverse walking, why is she doing that? Yes, it's creepy, it's really quite creepy, but does it have anything to do with love? No. It's after stuff like this when I just think, oh, okay, so she's just a demon that's roughly carrying out whatever the wish asked for, but ultimately still is just a weird, scary monster. That would be fine, if it was something that we knew from the movie, or at least something the movie implied. But really, as much as the whole demon possessed her thing is starting to become a pretty widely agreed upon theory, it isn't actually in the movie, and ultimately it's just headcanon that the fans have thought up in order to fill the gaps left by the script. Why does she tie up Sarah's body in the chair, leaving it splayed out like some kind of display? Is that just to be weird and scary because this is a horror movie and we just need to see more scary things happening? It's kind of annoying because without all these contrived scary bits, there would still be plenty of scenes in the film that would make it more than horror enough, while also fitting in with the established rules and logic that the film has created. The cat shrine makes a little bit of sense. She's trying to do something nice, if a bit weird, because she knows that Bear loved his cat. The freaky excerpt she reads at the party about the warped and wicked romance between Hansel and Gretel makes sense for obvious thematic reasons. Something about, this is wrong, but it feels so right. You know what I'm getting at. Dragging Sarah's chair out of the way so Bear kisses Nikki instead makes sense as the kind of thing that an overbearing, jealous girlfriend might do. And even the crazed killing of Sarah makes sense for that exact same, if not a little bit more deranged, reason. The movie didn't need to force these kind of things into itself because there was more than enough already that had the audience's attention. The extra scary scenes just confused the reality of Nikki's situation and made her seem a lot less of a real person trapped by a malevolent magical curse, which is really terrifying, and more like a crazy demon person who just does scary things sometimes for the sake of being scary. I still enjoyed the film, and I would recommend it too. I think it was an overall well executed, simplistic premise that allowed for a lot of creativity and playful horror. I wish the ending would have punished Bear a little bit more, considering how evil he had truly become by the end of the film. He deserved to be trapped loving her for a lot longer than he was, or at least trapped by some kind of counter wish that would have allowed him to be on the receiving end of a little bit more of the poetic justice that the movie clearly thought it was giving him. He got a much quicker, easier way out than Nikki is going to get, and obviously she didn't do anything to deserve her ending at all. It's just not a very satisfying ending relative to what might have been. Regardless, like I said, the movie is an overall success, and there are quite a few good comedic moments, and I love both the two main characters' performances. I like the escalation of Nikki's craziness, even though, as I said, some of it seemed a bit forced. I just wish the script were a bit better polished, and maybe come into a slightly more satisfying crescendo by the end. Thanks for watching, everyone. I really do appreciate all of you being here very much. If you want to interact with me at all, then please follow me on Twitter or X at TrueShameYT. I'm fairly active on there and I love trying to have engaging conversations, though I really need to move to a different platform of some kind. I've really wanted to do a Discord server or something. I just don't really know how that works, and it would be kind of pointless at this stage in my YouTube journey when I have no subscribers and no returning fans. But yeah, I plan on uploading as consistently as I can on this channel, and so I'd love for you all to stick around. Hopefully we can create a kind of little community on here and we can all gain something from that. I'd love nothing more, genuinely. Anyway, I'll see you all soon, and thanks again for watching.